Look, most remodeling contractors don't own a business. They just own a job, right? They're buried in work, grinding every day, thinking that they're making progress. But if they stop working, man, everything stops, right? They're stuck in the weeds, losing sight of the big picture. They don't own the business owns them. Hey guys, welcome to the Hack Hour. Today we're talking about remodeling class wars, right? We have contractors versus business owners. I want to share my own story today and how I figured out that most remodelers are just, in my opinion, they're going about the game the wrong way. And this is why I refuse to do things the way that everybody else was doing them. So, and then we'll break down why so many guys get trapped in self-employment and they just can't get out of it, right? And you can look at the concept. That's how I came up with my book, Fire, Hire, Retire. It's all weaved together here today. So this will challenge the way you think about your business. So let's get into it. When I first got into remodeling, I noticed something right away. Most remodeling business owners, they weren't healthy, they weren't wealthy, and they weren't that happy. And at first, it kind of made me a little nervous. Like, do I really want to get into this industry? Because I came into this from a background where I had worked some corporate jobs. And in the corporate world, you see a lot of successful business owners that are very wealthy, they're healthy, and they're happy, right? They enjoy what they do. So I'm like, man, what is going on in this remodeling world? And what you see is that a lot of guys, they've just been in the business for 20 plus years and they still grind. You know, they're out there every day. You know, they're on the job site, knocking the sawdust off. They just love that, right? They're constantly stressed and they're always chasing the next paycheck. You know, that didn't look super successful to me. These guys just look tired and beat up. But instead of letting that discourage me, I went a different path with it. I let it motivate me. And I realized that for me, if I'm going to be successful, that I couldn't do the things the way a lot of the guys around me were going to do it. I was going to go about creating a remodeling business in a different direction. So I had two choices, right? You follow the crowd, you look around and you're like, well, this guy's doing it that way. You know, I don't want to end up like them, right? Overworked, underpaid, stuck in the weeds. Or I could do things differently. I could think differently. I could work differently and actually build something that will work on its own. So while most guys are just figuring the things out as they go, like I started to study the business and business in general. I was reading a lot of books. So early on, I read a book from Robert Kiyosaki. Also, after a few years in business, Michael Gerber's book came out. And these guys, see, they weren't just talking about working harder, right? That's what you hear on the job site. You just need to work harder. No, these guys were talking about building a business that like runs itself without me. And the more I learned, the clearer it became. Look, most remodelers, they're just stuck in self-employment. Okay, they're not, if you break it down, they're not really business. It's not the business ownership model that they dreamed of, right? They're stuck. They're self-employed. So, you know, these guys, they're buried in daily work, right? Instead of building a company that could run without them, they have to be there doing everything, right? They don't have any systems or processes. In fact, that is their process. They don't have one that works well. It depends on them, right? There's no roadmap. They don't have a plan how they're going to escape the grind. So this is when I started seeing the difference between the contractors I was competing against in some aspects and like what a true business owner looks like. So I also had a very fortunate experience in my local marketplace. We had some big competitors when I got started, and it was a little intimidating at first. One of my biggest competitors, a huge remodeling company, they had been in business for over 50 years, right? They were doing millions in revenue, and everyone knew their name. In fact, their web address, so their company name was Welsh Remodeling, huge, and everyone knew Welsh. The other thing they did, so web addresses were brand new, websites were new back then, so they took their license number. See, they were the 49th contractor licensed in my state, and if I look at my license number, I was like number 10,000. So quite a few guys had come and gone in those days. So they bragged about Welsh 49. We're the 49th remodeler in the state. And it got me thinking about, well, I want to compete with these guys. My company was called Shoreline. I was like, Shoreline 49 rings. So I made my web address Shoreline 49. And there was a few more reasons why we did that as well. And we'll get into that more when we talk about like marketing and who your target market is and demographics, stuff like that. But anyway, so here's what happens. Welsh Remodeling, this is in the 2000 time frame, maybe 2012-ish. They end up getting bought out. And a new owner comes in to buy, as a partner. He buys it. Very wealthy family. And the guy was so excited that he's buying a remodeling business. I think he had something to do with other businesses, but he wasn't a contractor. And maybe he just always dreamed of being one. I don't know. The guy's last name was Meyerhoff. He comes from a very wealthy family. And man, there was just a colossal of calamity of errors that followed thereafter. Apparently he just, his methodology or the way he wanted to go about running a remodeling business didn't work. I didn't work for him, so I don't know all the ins and outs, but clearly. So here's what happens. One of the largest remodeling contractors, most successful, the longest in history, but, they go out of business. It's devastating in the local area. Clients, millions of dollars are lost, right? Clients are losing deposits. You got jobs that just couldn't get started or weren't going to be finished. It got so bad that the state of Maryland had to step in, and they're trying to help out all the homeowners that were being screwed through this process. It was devastating. Now, it was good for me because it was creating all kinds of chaos. And one of my biggest competitors was gone. Now, there was a splinter effect. So many of their employees went and started their own business. But again, the chances of those guys surviving wasn't that great either because, as you guys know, most companies go out of business within their first few years. So, but it got me wondering, like, how does a company that big fail so fast, right? And like my aspiration was to grow as big as them, but not have it take 50 years. And what I learned was that just by being big, it doesn't mean that they know how to run a remodeling business, right? There's some nuances that are involved in being a remodeler. There's a huge wake-up call for me, right? Because I saw firsthand that success in remodeling isn't just about being good at the work, right? It's about knowing how to actually operate the business. You can have all the best carpenters in the world, right? You could be the best carpenter in the world. Doesn't mean your business is going to be great. So, and if you don't understand that, then really it's not going to matter how big you are because eventually you will fail as well. And it wasn't just them. Man, it was a good time to be where I was because I had another big competitor and I had recently lost several additions to this company, right? It was very competitive. I come up with them quite a bit. This company was part of a nationwide brand. So I don't live, at the time I didn't live that far away from a company's headquarters of Case. And they had built a design handyman build. It was a design build franchise. And then they also had a handyman franchise. And they were selling these things like hotcakes throughout the country. Just so happened that a few miles north of me, a guy had a franchise location and it was doing well. Again, multi-millions per year in sales. He had everything. He had designers, he had salespeople, he had project managers, he had guys out in the field. They were everywhere. Massive brand recognition, again, millions in revenue. But behind the scenes, here again, you have another business owner that is struggling to run a remodeling business successfully. This local branch was having big trouble. And I don't know why the corporate office didn't. You don't understand all the details, but this guy, the local guy, he was involved in a lot of lawsuits with homeowners. And so what starts happening is a lot of homeowners are now calling me because they had contracted with the other company, but we had bid on it and they wanted to hire us now. And so it was a twofold issue because all of a sudden I need to grow to handle, like, two of my biggest competitors have fallen apart because they didn't understand how to run a remodeling business. They were good at the art. They could go out and do the science, right? They knew how to build the stuff, but they couldn't manage the business. So I needed to grow and get some new employees. And this was a big opportunity for me. And it taught me a lot about hiring A players, right? So anyway, here I go. I have this opportunity now. I get to hire some great guys because my competitor's going out of business, because I want to take on this extra work that I now see available in the marketplace. Okay. And again, this is when I started to truly understand that even those biggest remodeling companies, man, a lot of them, they're struggling behind the scenes because they just don't take the time to put the proper systems in place. So when they grow, they just grow chaos, right? It's a chaotic growth because they were already struggling to manage the small business that they had, but they were like, oh, I'll get some more guys, I'll sell more jobs. And they just have more and more problems, right? And if you lay a proper foundation, man, if you take the time, it's kind of like a sports car. Man, if you just get the right wheels, right, and the right rims, and everything's balanced, you can go so much farther, so much faster, so much smoother, so much easier. But if everything's like hodgepodged and none of it, you got a tire off one vehicle from this tire's a little bald, that tire's a little flat, and then you try to go out and race, you might have a fast car, but it's going to break down, right? It's going to have a lot of problems. And that's the way it is with most people's businesses. So it's not always about how big somebody is or how many salespeople they have or how many crews they have. It's not always about the name recognition. Just because their family's been in business for 30 years and they're second or eighth generation, right? It's actually more about how well you can run the remodeling business. And that's where this episode comes together now, right? So here we are. I like to talk about the remodeling class wars. So in the remodeling world, you have a lot of contractors, great craftsmen, right? But you don't have a lot of great business owners. You just have a lot of self-employed guys. And so I want to talk about that and why so many of these self-employed contractors, how they get stuck in the weeds, right? And look, they are great at their trade, but unfortunately, they're just bad at the business. And I've hired a lot of the guys that are great craftsmen who've tried to run their own business to have it fail because they didn't understand the business side. They'll come and I'll hire them. They'll work for me, and they're great employees. And there's definitely, I feel for them because I was like, man, if you would have had someone give you this roadmap, you could have ran your own business. And that's kind of what spawned the idea for the Remodeling Academy. Was I recognized there's a lot of guys out there that are really good craftsmen, and man, they just struggle to run a business. And if someone could just hand them the pieces of the puzzle, hey, this is how you operate this part, this is how you run this is how you take care of that, they could run a good business. And a lot of them, they do need a partner. They got to bring someone in to help them, but they would do better, right, and survive. So again, let's go back to why these contractors struggle, right? The typical contractor guy who's in the self-employed state of business, they're trying to handle everything themselves, right? They're on the job swinging the hammer. They're managing their vendors, their deliveries. They're managing a helper or two. They're estimating their own jobs. They're selling their own jobs, and they're trying to market their business. Most of you guys are just, this, you rely on word of mouth and a couple Facebook ads. You're like, yeah, I got a business. And it's like, there's a lot more to it. All right. So the self-employed contractor usually doesn't have any real system. That is their system. They don't have any real depth, or it's not a functioning system. There's no real team there, right? Basically, they just have a bunch of helpers who need constant babysitting. And if anything you'll learn from me is I am not a babysitter. Like, I want people that can do and do well. I just help give them the roadmap. Here you go. Have at it, So again, a lot of these self-employed contractors, if they stop working, then the money stops coming and rolling in. And part of the reason why I get into this is when I started my remodeling business, I clearly remember I was like, I want to have a business where I can take vacations. Like, I want to work hard for a certain period of time, and then I want to take a break and refresh, go enjoy life, maybe go to the beach for a couple weeks, go to the mountains for a couple, and then come back and let's get back to work. I like to look at business more from like semester. Like, I like that idea of college. Like, let's study real hard for the next several months. And then we're going to take a little spring break. We're going to take a winter break. We'll take a summer break. All right. I like having, so if you don't have a good system in place, you're never going to be able to take those vacations or breaks because your business falls apart or doesn't even run at all while you're not there. So that's how you know that you don't own a business, right? If you can't plan a 2-week vacation to where everything's going to be fine and money's still rolling in and guys are still getting the payroll, they're getting paid, you don't own a business, you own a job, okay? And this is where most of these guys get stuck. And you have to recognize that if you think that you're going to outwork it to solve your problems, you're just going to burn out. You can't outwork bad systems, okay? You can't, you're going to say to yourself, if I push just a little bit harder, things will get better. And then it'll be, well, if I could just find good help, everything's going to be fine. There's just nobody that wants to work. Nobody wants to do this kind of work. And then it's like, man, it's the customers. If I could just find one good customer, all my customers are cheap. Nobody wants to do anything. And before you know it, you're that guy that runs around and it's everybody else's fault, right? You blame it on everybody else other than yourself. So it's a hard reality to face, but the truth is there are resources. That is why this podcast exists. So you can get introduced to the Remodeling Academy and you can say, damn it, I want to figure this shit out because I don't want to be a self-employed contractor. I want to be a contractor business owner. So there's help. There's a way, and trust it. All right. Let's talk about the guys who become business owners, right? The self-employed person that breaks free, gets out of the trap. See, those guys have learned that you have to put in, I know the word gets thrown around a lot, systems, but they have a process. There's a framework. There's a model to follow. They can hand someone a playbook and say, operate this, go at it, make it happen. Right? And that's how you can build a team. And that's how a business can then run and operate without you always having to do everything. Right? Because now you've learned that you need to hire the right people. You have to hire leaders and not just dependents. A lot of you guys are just bringing on a bunch of dependents. They rely on you for everything. Tell us what's next, boss. What time we got to be there, boss? What are we doing next, boss? What about this, boss? What about that? Not in my business. We want to have people that solve the problems. Go here's the job. Go get it. Take it. Make it happen. Right? So anyway, you want to be the guy. If you want to be the business owner, you got to focus on growth, right? Not just getting through the week, but how are we going to get through the year? How are we going to get through next year? What are we already planning, right? You got to understand how you are going to be able to step away and step out of your current role and have the business still make you money. So it's a process. It takes time, but it can be done. There's others that are doing it and doing it well. And this is where the true wealth and the freedom come in, right? So you have to ask yourself, it's like, well, how do you get there? And that's why I wrote the book, Fire, Hire, Retire. And that's a whole concept and process. And let me break it down a little bit for you here. It's a blueprint for like remodeling business success, right? First, if you're out in the field right now doing everything, you have to fire yourself from that role. You have to say, that's it. I'm not doing it anymore. That's the only way you're going to bring in someone else, right? You can't grow a business when you're the one who's out there swinging the hammer 40 to 60 hours a week all the time. Nope. You got to bring someone else in to do that. Or you have to partner with someone else who's going to grow the business for you, okay? So you identify what is holding you back. Right? Write down everything that you do on a daily basis, and then let's figure out who we can start delegating these tasks to and get someone in here to help so that you can move on and start growing the business. Now, a lot of people don't understand how to hire the right people in this industry, and that's where so for some of you guys, I see this constantly. It's like, don't focus on hiring cheap labor instead of like real leaders, right? Don't micromanage instead of trusting your team, and don't refuse to pay for the top talent, right? Because then you're just going to get stuck having to do it all for yourself. You have to change the mindset to where I need to hire good people, great people, because that's going to let me grow. Yes, it might be challenging at first. Yes, I'm not sure if I can afford that person. But what happens is when you hire them, then you figure it out and you make sure that you keep them on your team. That's how you grow and get over the hump. And that's what we do for you at the Remodeling Academy. We help you do that and get over these hurdles and stumbling blocks. So you fire yourself, you stop doing it, right? You hire the person who's going to take the role, you get them set up, and then you just retire that off your plate. Awesome. I got it. So let's take the role of the carpenter, lead carpenter out in the field. That's you currently, not anymore. So you hire your protege, the guy who's going to take your position. You bring him in, he gets trained up, you put him out there. It's his job now. So you retire from that, and now you move on to the next thing, right? So if you've been able to put a couple good guys out in the field that do everything perfect for you, well, now you probably need a project manager. Or now you need a salesperson, right? So that's the retiring part. You finish that job and you move on to the next part of the business. And this is how you go and grow a business, okay? So it's how you retire yourself from being the one who has to do everything, right? We build systems for our business so that our business will run without us. We shift our focus to growth, to understand marketing, right? Understanding the finances and building a strategy. This is how you go from being the self-employed contractor to being the contractor business owner. So, look, at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, are you going to stay stuck or are you going to step it up, right? Because at the end of the day, there's just two types of these remodelers or contractors. There's the ones that stay stuck in the day-to-day weeds, and there's the ones that build a real business. Look, the economy is always going to change. The labor market, it goes up, it goes down, it gets difficult, it gets easy. Material prices are going to always be going up for the most part until the new product comes out. It's cheap, and then it goes back up again, right? But the reality is that the winners, they're the ones that figure out and they start playing offense, not defense, right? So you got to ask yourself, like, are you serious about this? What kind of grinding do you want to do? I would say, do you want to start grinding on running a business and learning how to grow a business, not with how many more walls you're able to build every day? You know, not you personally. Your crew needs to be framing up the walls. You need to be figuring out, how do we land more deals, right? How do we grow? So if you're serious about wanting to get out of this daily grind, your next step right now, I recommend you go right over to remodelingriches.com and you get signed up for our next 5-day remodeler challenge. Okay. That's it. That's the next step. That is going to help you not only just survive, but thrive in this industry. So look, I wish you guys the best. I offer this podcast because I wish it was available to me. And some of you probably know, when I first got into the industry, I wanted a coach and I wanted to grow a business right away. And I was turned down from several people because they're like, well, you haven't been in business for 5 or 10 years. You're not doing 15 or 10 million. No, I was like, I just started, but I will be. And it was frustrating. So the reason the Remodeling Academy even exists is so that you who are just doing 200,000 or 500,000 or $1 million, you have somewhere that you can go and get these business strategies and these frameworks that we provide here. They'll get you as far as you want to take it. You want to be a $30 million a year company? Have at it. We have what's there for you. You want to be a $3 million a year business? Perfect. Here's what you need to do, right? It starts with just inserting and learning a couple frameworks one at a time, getting really good at them. As you build a good foundation, everything else can be done much faster and quicker. But if you're running around with a chicken like your head cut off now, as you try to grow, it just gets worse. It doesn't work. Again, get over to remodelingriches.com, get into our 5-day challenge, and from there, life gets a lot easier, business gets better. So remember, your success, like, it's ready for you. It's right here. You just have to ask yourself, are you ready for it? Do you want to go after it? Do you want to get it? I say, come on in. It's fun over here. We have a lot of successful people, and that's what makes life more fun, is when you're winning. Nobody likes to be losing all the time. So start winning. Come on in. Bye.